welcome back to Today in Chess World Championship Edition, where again, as you can see from the Open, we're bringing you totally unbiased coverage as we jump into the heat of battle at the World Championship. We're in round 2 of 12 potential rounds of this epic match. We've been waiting for a while, 6 months some might say, to see this great American challenger, Fabiano Caruana, face the reigning king, Magnus Carlsen. Others could say we've been waiting for decades to get an American shot at the grand title.
And both would be true. Both would be truthful statements. We have been waiting for decades, and yes, we are watching the World Chess Championship Game 2 after an epic opening yesterday, Jennifer. Wow. 7 hours.
Exhausting and thrilling at the same time. The first 4 hours were totally thrilling, and then it was a grind. But we know that Magnus, you can never let your guard down.
Yeah.
He can grind you down.
He set some really amazing traps, but Fabi stayed alert throughout, and he held a tough, hard-earned draw. And the really, really good news is he didn't lose that game. That was a victory of sorts for Fabi.
And I'm Jennifer Shahade. This is Yasser Seirawan. We are going to be bringing you the action for the next couple weeks. And not only the World Championship, but we're also going to be talking about some other events, including the Women's World Championship.
Absolutely. That's going on in Russia at the same time.
That's right. But let's take a look at the format for our marquee event. For those of you who are just joining us, we're in round 2 of a potential 12 games, a likely 12 games, I would say. But the first player to get 6.5 wins the match. We've got a luxurious 3-part time control. So as we saw yesterday, the games can go up to 7 hours. No draw offers before Black's 30th move. I don't think that would happen anyway. These players are here to fight and try to make as much as they can out of any white.
Absolutely, no question about that. And as you say, there are 3 time controls, 100 minutes for the first 40 moves, and then the third time control is after move 60.
And over $1 million in the prize fund. The schedule also luxurious, as is important for a World Championship match. There are 2 games, and then there's a rest day. And we see this pattern until the end of the match, in which case, if it's still split 6-6, we're going to have a tie breaks, a rapid playoff, blitz if necessary. All this rest, Yaz, it's really important, I think, to get the players prepared and make sure that they don't completely burn out. I mean, yesterday's battle, wow. Exactly. I'm sure Fabi is already exhausted. But meanwhile, as we look towards the future, we're going to go to Grandmaster Maurice Ashley to look at the past and these players' live ratings over 2018.
Alrighty then.
Well, 2018 certainly has been a majestic year for Fabiano Caruana. His rating, we know, was meteoric when he won the Sinquefield Cup with that spectacular score in 2014. He then took a dip for a while and then slowly but surely started building it up. But this year has been great for him, as has not been so bad for Magnus either. And we take a look at the graph here. As you see at the top, Magnus, he was stratospheric as the #1 rated player of all time. I believe it was 2889 was his live rating. But since then, it's very difficult to maintain that rating. He did keep a distance between all his pursuers, but now look at the convergence as Magnus, not a bad year for him, not many losses, in fact, but all those draws, whenever you lose, it's like Chinese water torture. Just little by little, that dip has happened. In the meantime, Fabi's year, you see that gigantic dip is because of his bad result in Tata Steel. But since then, he has just simply surged. He won the candidates, then won Grenke, then won Norway, his tie for first at the Sinquefield Cup, and his good result at the Olympiad. All that has brought him now within a stone's throw, a hair's breadth of Magnus Carlsen. If he wins this match, even +1, he's going to be the #1 ranked player on the planet. And you see there, that's not going to be easy to do because 5 games, Fabi hasn't won any against Magnus this year, and in fact has lost 1, and as we saw yesterday, has been pressed in others as well. Sinquefield Cup, he may have lost also. So 3 games that easily could have gone the way of the champion, but only +1 for Magnus. We'll see whether or not that stays to form in this event. Now, we should point out a bit of trivia. The 7 matches that have occurred with 12 games, since the inception of the 12-game matches, the challenger has never won game 2. And in fact, the champ has gone 3-0. So history does not bode well for Fabi on this individual game, but we will see whether or not he can rewrite history and possibly win, as this position is interesting and looks fine for him.
Thank you, Maurice.
That's right, Maurice. Let's jump into the position, Yaz, as
Sure.
we are now in about a halfway mark of both the time control and the move counts. And I'm looking at this position. It's lots of trades. You see that gorgeous bishop on f3 and the rook on b1. So you got to give Magnus some marks for better piece play. But on the other hand, his pawn structure much worse. So who do you go with, Yaz, and
I
why?
like black. I like black because I love playing against structural weaknesses. After, as you noted, in this exact position, Magnus decided not to wait to defend this pawn on e5, but instead tried to keep as much activity for his pieces with the move rook b1, attacking the pawn on b7. We did see the move rook b8 already played. I suppose that the reason that white was not worried, that Magnus was not worried about the loss of the pawn, was that in such a situation where I get to play queen d8 check and pin the black pieces along the 8th rank, that's ample compensation for the pawn. And that's why Fabi chose to play the move rook b8. And I believe we're now up to date with the players after queen d3. If I were in Fabi's shoes, I'd play bishop d7. And again, I have no worries about this position whatsoever for the black player. I like the idea. I like the fact that this queen is really nice. It attacks the pawn on c7 and on e5. It attacks the pawn on c3, and pardon me, even this bishop attacks the pawn on a4.
Which is pretty relevant because suppose I try to move queen d6 here.
Oh, that I will hopefully deal with open arms. I'll embrace with open arms. And what I want to say is that this pawn on d6 is really susceptible. It's really close to black's king. And it may be that it's beyond your supply lines to maintain the pawn on d6.
Right. Well, my thought is, can I bum rush you with a5 followed by
Sure.
c4, c5? Do I have time to do all that?
Right. If you get, as you say,
Yeah,
the bums
gonna win
rush.
now.
I like that. If you get the bums rush and you get to manage to play moves like a5 before anything bad happens towards for you, I can imagine it will be okay.
Okay, but rook takes, of course, is a key move. If you take with a pawn, then I would just continue along with my plan of c4 and c5.
c4 and c5.
Which makes me think maybe I shouldn't take until I have to. So just like in here, continue c4 instead of takes.
Continue with the move c4, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me as well, Jen. I like that
And
idea.
you're maybe gonna have to tactically defend with rook c8 now.
Yeah, I'll step off the pin, and let's say if we trade everything.
And I still have back rank issues, which will be a key tempo for you.
Right,
But, okay,
for the moment.
You're no longer winning this.
No, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a pretty easy draw. It's kind of a funny thing that when you went queen d6 that I had to actually play ball with you there. I really think that it's one of those positions that could. It's actually a lot sharper than you would imagine it to be. I mean, I'm leaving you in a situation where you may have two connected pass pawns.
Versus an outside passer.
But versus a very far outside passer. So I would be surprised if white can just play queen d6 and bail out. I thought that black had a little edge. At the moment, I'm just going to say it's about even, but if I had my choice of which side I prefer to play, I would take black.
Well, that makes sense because it seems like white needs to find the right tactical, dynamic solution to white's strategic edge. And if they don't, they could end up in trouble, right?
Well, let's be clear. White has the more active pieces.
Yes.
He doesn't have a strategic edge.
That's what
he
I
has a
meant.
strategic inferiority.
That's what I mean.
The structure, yeah.
Exactly.
So
needs
he's got to use his dynamic
right.
possibilities to
Exactly.
offset.
Whereas black's moves come more easy.
Right.
Yes.
If black can just play b6, rook c8, bishop e8, it's great, right? And like you were looking for ideas of a5 and c4 and timing, very, very important.
Right, I got to find the right sequence. And you know, it's funny because usually people say the opposite, Yaz, especially players who are just starting out. that it's always easier to play with the active pieces,
Yeah.
right? But I think that's more, maybe that's more true when there's a lot more pieces in the board. When
That's right.
White's left to,
Just a couple pieces.
just
yeah.
the cusp of having enough pieces to make the activity meaningful.
I've always enjoyed playing against my opponent's structural pawn weaknesses because it's like long term. And if you find all the right moves and you do, handle the structural weaknesses and making a draw, well, power to you. But it's very easy. Like a single misstepped move could really see White in a lot of trouble in this game. I don't discount that Black could pull off an upset here.
But let's talk about a fantasy here.
Yes, please.
If I could put any two wider pieces on this board, I feel like I'd like White. If I
Okay.
could put a pair of dark squared bishops,
Oh, yeah, sure.
a pair of knights. It's all about that pawn on e5, and it gives us attacking chances. But unfortunately, there's just too many trades for Magnus to make hay out of it.
Yes, yes. And again, I mean, there are pawns hanging in the position, the a4 pawn, the e5 pawn. But I know that Maurice has been keeping a very close eye on the women's championships. They're in they're in the round of 16, right?
That's right. I've been taking a
The
close look at that as well, and it's really been a thrilling contest.
It's a 64-player knockout, first of all. Let's set it up.
Right, 64-player knockout. We had 2 American players, and they've both been eliminated in the round.
Sabina was eliminated in the first round.
Sabina Foiser, 2017 U.S. Women's Champion.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a bit. We're actually in the round of 16. That's going to be tiebreakers tomorrow, and then we'll have our final 8 when we come back on Monday.
The Elite 8.
But first, we have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley to give his thoughts on how we got here in Carlsen Caruana.
Yes, of course, the game was in progress when we jumped on and came into the middle of this. And it should be noted that there was some intriguing, at least one particularly intriguing moment that occurred in the opening. So we see here, of course, is Queen's Gambit decline position. And after Bishop c5, Queen to c2, Knight c6, a3, this is such a well-known position, has been played countless number of times. But this move, Rook d1, was answered by Rook to d8. And this is not the most natural move. The popular move here is Bishop back to e7, and that is by far the most popular move in the position, avoiding any forks on b4 and the like. But Rook to d8, this move is infrequently seen, and White usually gets an edge out of this position. Now, Jesse Cry, Grandmaster in residence and also a commentator at the club, he was just hanging out, and when we were talking about this position, he said, Rook d8, what is that? We've known since we were kids that's a bad move. And I said, well, yeah, but it is, after all, preparation. The guy's been spending 6 months preparing for a match. He is 28-32 after all. And the fact that Knight d2, which is commonly considered the right way to proceed in this position, was not played by Magnus, you've got to think that there's got to be some preparation here. And he just insisted, no way in the world, we're not going to see Rook d8 again. And I couldn't get him off of that idea at all because he just so hated the move Rook to d8. Now, we will see whether or not this was indeed a bluff, as Jesse also said about the move. But this certainly was not the most popular move in the position. Knight d2 is considered the right way to go, but Bishop e2, avoiding any kind of preparation, is what Magnus did. And that's how we got to this position after all these trades, h6, and another interesting moment with this knight switching to e7 and the bishop dropping back. And we saw a lot of sharp ideas happen here after knight takes, and bishop to e5. This is what actually caused the structure to be what it was. But just a bit of tension, that rook to d8 move, and also the knight maneuver, followed by that trade. Certainly an interesting position. But was it a bluff, rook d8?
No, it wasn't a bluff. No. These players have been preparing themselves for quite some time. And there's no doubt, I have no doubts whatsoever, that Rook d8 was deeply prepared by Fabiano.
That's what I was saying.
I
mean,
think
it's kind of hard to believe that he would just play a move, get this position and say, oops, I'm just here, and then play the move Rook d8, knowing that that's not the standard way to play in this position.
No, and I would just add one thing further, that Fabiano, of course, has a great rival here in the United States, in Hikaru Nakamura. And this is Hikaru's bread and butter defense is black. So you know he's been studying the games of Hikaru Nakamura in Fabiano, and Hikaru is probably one of the most experienced player, Maurice. This variation is black.
And if it was
Absolutely,
Hikaru, it
but
could be
they
a
play
block.
some sharp. They play
Nobody-
razor. Nakaru plays this razor sharp stuff.
Right.
With sacrifices on D4, night lands on D4.
Right, E5 and knight
E5
D4.
and that craziness.
Right.
And we've seen that happen a few times, in fact,
That's
from
right.
Hikaru. What we've been doing commentary.
Right.
So to see Fabi play this, to me, it seems unusual that he would make a move that is not the standard reply in this position and not be well prepared. And by the way, he was ahead on the clock at the point that he did it. Very quickly, he was ahead on the clock as Magnus started slowing down dramatically so to deal with this opening surprise. So I would say success Fabi. He won the opening battle if he came out of it with this position that we see now on the board as we jump ahead to this position. And I mean, this is actually not the game position. Let me refresh my board. Here it is. This is what we have as the game position, and it looks like things are getting interesting again with this move A5 on the board.
Okay, so instead of Queen D6, A5 immediately, with some of the ideas that we were looking at with Queen D6 perhaps being still in the air.
Right.
Yeah,
Oops,
it looks like, actually it's funny because in both games, Black got the edge, right?
Well,
or
exactly,
certainly won the opening battle, even if you
from
argue that.
Yesterday's game and today's game, yeah. And we had a move that, I think we had a move after A5, did we, Jen? Was it Bishop C6? I'm not sure. I wasn't sure. We saw in this position, instead of the move Queen D6, A5 was the choice of Magnus, and it's Fabi to play still?
Yeah, it's still Fabi to play, I believe. But
Okay.
okay, so A5, what do you make of this move, Yaz? So no Queen D6, A5 idea.
Well, similar ideas to what we were looking at. White would like now to play Queen D6. Now the question for me is,
Bishop
what
C6.
about Bishop C6?
Yeah, it seems like a move that really helps you getting rid of two weak points, the pawn on B7 and the bishop on D7, right? You were having
Yes.
some issues kind of defending everything, whereas now, if I were to play, let's just say I started trading things with bishop takes C6.
And let me just pause here for a second, because I think everybody would play Queen takes C6 recapture in a blitz game without too much thought. The reason I would pause a moment is because, again, both of these pawns are hanging, and it's actually White's king. White does not have luft in the position. So if I capture with the pawn, and let's just continue with the line for a moment, we'll trade. We're now in a straight queen ending, but the e-pawn is on pre. There's a double threat in the position, I want to say, in Black's favor. Fabi's threatening to grab a pawn, but oh, he's not threatening to give checkmate.
Well, he's like, yeah, and the other.
Oops, sorry.
So I better make luft here if I'm White. But the nice thing about this position is that at least White has the potential to, if you get too much counterplay as Black, I note that that pawn is so advanced on A5, so you're always going to have to keep an eye on the A7 pawn.
Okay.
So I'm kind of envisioning situations where even if you were to get E5 and C3, if I can get A7, and I'm going to be totally fine.
You'll be fine.
So
White's not going to lose any material here, and I don't think White's going to lose
I
real
agree.
sleep that
I
he's gonna
agree,
lose this
but
game.
I think it's a position where Black's extremely comfortable. Black's not having any issues at all. Now, again, at this moment, I'm saying B7 takes C6 is a serious recapture, as is the move Queen takes C6. Who do you think should be? Who's the player trying to make the draw here? I'm saying it's White because of his structure.
You know, I hate that question.
Yeah, who's
You know
trying to
me.
make a draw?
I hate that question. Who's trying to make a draw? These two
Well-
guys are so close in ability. The technical prowess of Magnus Carlsen is so high. It's clear
Remarkable.
that Black has no problems in this position.
Right.
Structure is perfect. The rook on B8 is just temporary.
Right.
The pressure on B7, irrelevant. It's not going to cause any problems for Black whatsoever. So this position is all about those White weaknesses. However, those pawns do control some space, and it's not so easy just to create play as Black. A couple of precise moves by White should equalize the game. And to me, I don't see Magnus losing this. It would be amazing. I think it would be a shocker to see Magnus Carlsen lose his position with the white pieces. This game looks like it should be a draw. But that said, it's not black who's worried at all in this position.
No.
Well, and
But
for
it's
those
a
of
victory of sorts for Fabi then.
And for the chess fans watching at home, there's still a lot here.
Of course.
I mean, it's just the reason that we say it's probably going to be drawn is because we're talking about the two very best players in the world.
The
And we
greatest
know that,
technicians there are.
and
yeah.
we know that Magnus is going to find those ideas, and that Fabi, I mean, first of all, your B takes C6 move is not the type of move that most amateurs would look at, because
Exactly.
it's all about privileging activity over structure.
Right.
And you were talking about the structure, but it's just ingrained in your brain that activity is also important.
But I had this issue. I actually had an oversight, is what I wanted to say. I was looking at B7 takes C6 quite seriously, because in my mind's eye, I had two threats. I had the threat of queen takes E5 and the threat of queen B1 checkmate. Only when I actually got to this position, I realized that the B1 square is actually covered.
And so after something like
F4, for example,
just
and
F4
you can
or-
deal with both my quote threats.
Everything's going to be covered.
And it's
Yeah.
going to be a draw.
Well, this position is definitely going towards
Or,
a draw.
by the way, White could consider playing queen. Well, after queen takes C6, we have to look at the queen D6 move, right?
Queen D6 again.
Yeah.
Well, queen
Wow.
E6. I mean, the reality is he can always trade and bring his king over.
Yeah.
Right? And then White will be scrambling to defend that D pawn. Maybe even getting his pawn down to C5. He might be able to maneuver that successfully. But Black, I don't think Black is going to be.
Because worst case, Black can always just bail out with rook C8, rook takes C3, and a lot of trades.
Well, first the king's going to end up on D7. That's going to be fact number one. The king's going to end up over there. Your king's not fast. You're going to have to use those pawns. Then at the right moment, as you said, Jen, the rook will go to C8. That'll be a challenge. So I agree with you, Yaz. When you talk about victory of sorts, when you're playing a match, every white is like a serve in tennis.
Sure.
And if you can block the serve and say, okay, that was no problem. Yesterday you made me suffer. I had the white pieces and you made me suffer. Today you had the white pieces and I nullify you completely. Nothing saying. In fact, I'm the one who's thinking about something and you're the one who's thinking about a draw. That's a little bit of a frustration factor for the guy with the white pieces. And we saw this happen with Magnus when he played his last match against Koryakin. He got frustrated when he couldn't land blows, and then the other positions he wasn't doing anything, and then suddenly he lost the game. So as far as Fabi is concerned, if he can just walk out of here after suffering yesterday, and walk out with a nice draw, get a nice rest day, and in the meantime his seconds are shoring up the opening for 2 days from now, and he's going to feel pretty good about himself. So that's where that's a success already. So if he's got the draw in the pocket, he'll keep it. He'll try a little something today. Will he try to torture Magnus the way Magnus tortured him yesterday? It doesn't feel like there's enough in this position to make that happen. But if he can, he will. He'll just keep playing a few moves to see what happens. And maybe that's why he's hesitating over the move bishop to c6 to see if there's any more juice in the position to use. But he probably is going to have to settle on something like that quite shortly.
Very good. And also, we're going to have a very special guest, Jennifer.
That's right, Bruce Pandolfini, Fabiano Caruana's first trainer. He's going to be coming up here on the live show. And you know, whenever I think of Bruce Pandolfini and Fabi, I can't help but think of that New Yorker photograph of both of them playing out with the umbrella at Washington Square Park, and the recreation of it many years later when Fabi was an elite player.
I see Bruce Pandolfini. I always think searching for Bobby Fischer and Josh Waitzkin, because Bruce Pandolfini was also your best friend, Josh Waitzkin, Maurice. Bruce was Josh Waitzkin's trainer too.
That's right, and you know the funny thing is when I'm thinking of some of those scenes from the Hollywood movie based on Searching for Bobby Fischer by Josh Waitzkin's dad, Fred. Now I'm thinking of them and I'm thinking of like Fabi, right?
Yeah. Because in a sense, Fabi is. As Josh was going to be the new Bobby Fischer.
That's right. The New York Times article said, "Searching for Bobby Fischer, U.S. finds Fabi."
Correct. That's exactly what has happened. Now, what you're going to do, Maurice, is to show us some of the ladies' games.
Soon. I know you're
I'm anxious
so
to see what's going on.
But
because I know there was a huge result that Stefanova came back. She had lost the first game, but she won against Anna.
Right. They're one of the most anticipated matches of that round of 16 was certainly former women's world champion Antonetta Stefanova versus
Precisely.
Anna Muzichuk, who
That's
is
the one I'm
who was
thinking
actually
about.
the highest rated on the live rating list in that match, in the entire tournament.
She's
Very
ahead
neck
of
and neck with,
Ju
they were like
Wenjun?
exactly the same.
Okay.
Literally like a point between them.
Excellent.
And today, Stefanova came back to even the score. So now we literally see two of the hugest favorites in the tournament
Going
who are
into
going to be playing
overtime.
rapid playoff tomorrow.
Oh boy.
So that's a really big one. And speaking of the Muzichuks, Maria Muzichuk, a former world
She's already
champion,
qualified.
she's made it into the round of Elite Eight. So
Right.
pretty crazy that we might have two Muzichuks in the Elite Eight. But first, Anna is going to have to strike back against Stefanova because today it was Antoinetta who got the best of her, and Maurice with some key games from the women's.
And the results as well. We should point out the complete results as we have a round of 16, so just 8 results to review. And first of all, the women's world champion, Ju Wenjun, playing fantastic chess so far. We noted that she did defeat America's own Irina Krush to move on to this round, but then again defeating her own countrywoman, Zhao Mo, and she is comfortably in to the round of 8. We also have some great matchups, as you see there. Gunina, who was upset yesterday in her match, and now we see the bottom half. But all these show a lot of ties, 1-1. That is specifically what we want to point out, that only one other player, as you mentioned, has gone on, and that is Maria Muzichuk going on. So 2 players. We're talking about 6 playoffs tomorrow.
Wow.
6 of them to see who goes to the round of 8. And these are all knockouts. So tremendously exciting round to be sure. Incredible play, contentious, and you just got to imagine all the nervous tension every day. Every game counts, every single day, and then knockouts, 6 of them. And those, I believe, are rapid knockouts, or are they blitz
They're
knockouts?
rapid.
They're rapid.
For
so
sure,
it's,
they're rapids.
if you guys are up, it depends on where you are in the world, because they're 10 hours ahead of us.
It's 4 a.m. here in St. Louis.
So
Maurice.
it's pretty early to
See you
wake
at the
up
studio.
to watch those games, but you can only imagine how exciting that is going to be. I'd like to take a look at a couple of the positions from the games. We did talk about Ju Wenjun. She just made her draw. She said, no problem, I'm going to be good in this position. This game between Stefanova and Muzichuk, this was a wild affair, but in the end it came down to an end game, and she was able to milk this end game with her extra material here. You see this maneuver, rook takes b4. This extra pawn was enough in this game. This game wasn't actually too wild. An attacking game in this one on the part of Maria Muzichuk. You see the young Iranian Mobina Alinasab. She has definitely got everybody looking at her, only 18 years old. Definitely a talented young player. That, though, talent is one thing, experience is another, and Maria Muzichuk showed what she had. Another game that was drawn. This is a big-time matchup, by the way. Katerina Lano, she has been a great player for a long time, as has the other vet, Natalia Pagonina. They drew both their games. So this is a big-time matchup going into who knows who's going to win. People might give the nod to Katerina, a little higher rated, but don't count out the veteran. Pagonina has definitely showed that she can fight with the best of them. This matchup is the one that I was talking about with Gunina. Gunina is clearly the favorite against the young Uzbeki, who I will dare you to tell me how to pronounce this name of hers, because I've got it as Gulruk Behim Tahoryanova. That's as good as I'm going to get. A lot of syllables and a lot of consonants in the name, by the way. Doesn't matter, as she won her first game, but Gunina, with the big comeback, as you see here, able to even the score to take this one to a tiebreak. Again, if I go down on the screen, this one was a draw. This matchup, another good matchup, by the way. Lie Ting-li, who is one of the Chinese women who won the Olympiad gold this year, against Alyssa Galyamova, who is also a strong Russian player. They have drawn both their games, and they're going on as well. And finally, I think I have just a couple more. This end game, Kostenyuk against Harika Dronovali, another big, I mean, any one of these women could win the title. This is how good they are. This Kostenyuk has already won the title, in fact. Very strong players. Harika from India, fantastic talent. We'll see how that one shakes up. That'll be great to watch. And now, finally, we go to another one, Abdul Malik. She is so talented. She's played here in St. Louis. She hits people hard, and she also played in the World Open and had a fantastic result there. I have my eye on her as a future talent and future challenger, and she's got the attitude, too. She's got the swag. She's just calm, like, let's get it done. Well, she got it done in this game, and she had to, and she was able to win against the young Polish player, Jolanta Zadwacka. That's going to be another great matchup as they fight it out in the battle of all these women for the possibility of going to the round of 8. It should be extremely exciting tomorrow, and it'll be a rest day for us. So we'll be, of course, checking in all the results. We'll let you know everything in a couple of days. But the Women's World Champion is absolutely heating up.
Yeah, the Women's World Championship, it really is a thrilling competition. And about Abdul Malik, gosh, she's got the best stare. That chest stare is terrifying.
I got to see the photos.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the photos yet, Jennifer.
This girl's a real killer.
She's got swag. I mean, she's definitely shows. She's not afraid of anybody. That's the attitude. When you see her at a board, you see her pictures, everything, and even the way she just handles herself. Although when she gets interviewed, she's the most pleasant interviewer in the world. She's just calm, collected, funny. But on the board,
yeah,
you better come with the moves.
She actually did an event. It's true because I see those death stares, but she did an event with Anna Rudolph at a nightclub.
Whoa.
Yeah, in Oslo, I believe. I'll double check with that, but it was like a fun chess event at a nightclub.
Okay.
So they were like playing Blitz while like people were clubbing.
Okay.
And at that one, she didn't have a death stare. Who would have thought?
I guess not at the club. But speaking of some photos, we're going to have a nice little montage of photos for our viewers, courtesy of Mike Lyon of chess.com, and we're going to show what the London
This is what it looks like at the London venue. We see the handshake, obviously in round 2, because round 1 rather. Sorry. The balloon says WorldChess.com.
Oh, I thought it was going to have some kind of like nice little.
That's not Photoshop. That's a real picture.
No, really.
And here's Fabi's death stare. Yeah, this is more calm. I wouldn't call it quite a.
It's not intimidating. It's going to work on the death stare.
He doesn't have any death stare.
That's okay. I mean, he's done pretty well for himself.
Exactly. Now there's the California cool. That's what we're used to with Magnus.
Yeah, both these guys have, more like calm demeanors at the board than, for instance, of course, a Gary Kasparov.
Ooh, now that was a death stare.
Yikes. That's number 1.
That really is a balloon in the thing. It's like weird.
I think that's part of their like marketing.
Okay.
Yeah, with like texting and their app.
Okay.
But it looks like I've heard Ian Rogers wrote a report for the U.S. Chess Federation's website that I just posted last night, and he said that the venue was not as bad as he expected in some ways because he thought it would be overcrowded, but it turned out that the crowds were relatively well maintained. The one problem was the press area. There's so much interest in chess journalism these days that you really need a big, comfortable room for the press.
The media center was too small. There was 35 seats for 120 accredited journalists at the start of the event. That's
huge. It's just awesome that there's so many journalists covering chess, and they're so good. There are so many great writers now talking and writing about chess, commenting on it. So, of course, Ian, of course, Mike, and it's just a really great age for them. So we got to also give them space.
Right.
And cookies.
So in Ian's report, how did he say that the organizers handled this overwhelming turnout of journalists?
I think he was at first a little concerned because apparently there was a little bit of a mix-up, and a lot of the people who had registered previously had to re-register for all of their press credentials.
Okay.
So it's turned out to be a bit of a mess, but he said they were able to like resolve it for the most part. That everybody who needed to get in and get their photos of Fabi and Magnus did.
Okay. Very important.
Yeah, but I'll keep you posted as he continues to report from London.
Certainly. Well, wonderful. Well, let's get to what has happened in the game between Fabi and Magnus. When we have left it, we've just seen these moves: Queen D3, Bishop D7, all very standard moves. A5, which we had mentioned, and Bishop C6, neutralizing the diagonal. We were mainly focused, Jen, on potential captures.
And then playing queen d6.
And then playing queen
But this
d6.
queen d6 move right away
Was,
also
in
makes some
fact,
sense. Although,
Magnus's choice.
But so the negative of this move is that after queen d6, pawn d6, now black has the opportunity to weaken white's pawn structure even further.
With bishop takes f3, but then I've kind of given luft to white's
Exactly.
king side.
So we've gained a tempo in a way because our king now is a little bit faster. Also, it could potentially go to g2, g3, f4.
Right.
But the question is, after that happens, what's going on with the c4, c5 push? How fast are we?
Right.
So
it's all about
the tempi.
The tempi, indeed.
So
Let me start with the move rook d8 at once. I don't want to resolve this tension quite yet. I'd like you to invest a tempo with the move a5, a6 before forcing me to capture on f3.
Gotcha. So after a6, it looks like there's a lot of variations with whole trades, just like lots and lots of trades, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like
exactly.
even, no, I don't want to go for that one. I was thinking after a6, bishop takes f3, I could even play takes on b7 to be cute, but that would be...
Maybe that's a little bit excessive, right?
Yeah, because there's a mate now at the...
Yeah, I do recapture, and I got the capture, and like you say, since there's no pawn on f3 in this variation, white has to actually respect the back rank mate
So that
threat.
would be unnecessary. After bishop takes f3, instead you could simply play g takes f3.
Yeah.
And then rook d6, rook b7.
Right.
Or in this position, just take.
I don't think...
I don't know about that either.
I don't want to really... Well, maybe I do. I think I would probably just play chill.
I don't know if I want to play a6, honestly.
Okay,
if I can't do my
sure.
line with takes on b7, I don't really want to do it. So
right.
after rook d8, maybe I should come up with something different here.
Okay. Like one thing, if you just want to bail out and say, okay, let's make a draw together, let's be friends, we can go takes, king f1, takes. Now you can give a check.
Yeah.
And now, after this move, you win your pawn back, because this is a double attack against this and this guy, and I think there's going to be a massive liquidation, and everybody can be happy and go home.
That's right. Get some fish and chips.
Fish and chips. There you go. Okay.
But yeah, I think that we are going to see something like this in this game. It's just a question of how they do it and whether there's any tricks in the position that one player will try to go for. It looks like we do have a couple moves in your board with bishop takes f3 and g takes f3. You wanted to play rook d8 first.
Yeah.
But it looks like
did
bishop
Fabi go for the bishop f3 trade at once?
Yeah, and now you imagine he's going to play like king over, try to go after that pawn, king f8.
Exactly. At the moment the pawn on b7 is nicely defended, I was having a very interesting
c4
discussion with myself about this funny king and pawn endgame. Now, just imagine a situation like this. Who would you guess is winning this king and pawn endgame? Unfortunately, the little Mercury on the left side of the board gave it away.
Yeah.
But you pushed too quickly. Why don't you just play king f1?
Of course I did. But the idea is that these two pawns on d7 and c6 are really, really strong, except black's now has bridesmaids on the queen side and the king side. And
also, I'm just so fast, right? In that particular position, a5, I just can't even get into the square of the pawn.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. That was the other problem. Okay.
You gotta.
Okay, I was thinking that that black was going. Ooh, maybe I just pushed too fast. Black should make a pass. Whoops, where? Okay, black should make a pass pawn on the king side and the queen side. So he should be going like f5, g5, and making a passer. And
this endgame is so sharp. What you just put on the board is not even funny. Because
we could analyze it.
White, this one, white has to compete against black's pass pawn on the other side. But his double pawns actually help. They don't
Yeah,
they don't hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
It's harder. It's not easy to get the pass pawn against these guys.
Right.
You're gonna have to sacrifice something actually to get the pass pawn.
Right.
But how do you execute? I mean, this is sharp, and the fact that the Indians already bailing out and saying equal
0-0-0
is like what? Because obviously the A pawn's not going anywhere. White's threatening. The black king will go on c6 in this position, so white will not be able to get to b5 and just collect the pawn, and it's not going to be so easy to advance there. But for white to maintain the balance, it may have to sacrifice with d7 and then play king b5, take the pawn, try to make his pawn work. Will he get back in time? I mean, this one could take us literally an hour to analyze.
Right.
Crazy.
I just thought it was an interesting and wild king and pawn endgame.
It is completely wild, and
Magnus
that's the kind of position that we as players we normally are like, okay, let's learn from this position.
Exactly.
Sit and analyze and analyze and analyze. Is it forced? How forced is this idea?
King f8. We anticipate c4 being forced. There's no real judgment about that one, right? And essentially, what white wants to do is play c5 and a6. So I was looking at king e8, c5. Now, if I have a choice, please let me know. I went king d7, and I went a6.
Do you have to play a6?
Essentially, yeah, because if you get to play king c6, my pawns are going to be quite vulnerable to capture. So I thought I have to be very consequential and forcing. So I played a6. Now this is maybe a controversial move. Black doesn't necessarily have to play the move the king to c6. I mean, he may be able to just play b6 as well. Like, for example, a situation like this could just well end in a kind of a draw.
But maybe some suffering for white.
Maybe.
So
maybe.
what if white just tries to hold the stasis? How are you going to make progress? Like, suppose instead of a6, I play rook c1.
Okay.
And so I see you're going to play king c6.
Which is for sure, right?
Okay, and then but what's your next strategy if I start moving?
I would love to activate my rook. Don't ask me exactly how.
I want my king.
Yeah. I guess I want to activate my rook somehow with e5 and maybe f5 and g5. Somehow get my rook going.
And I need to get my king into the game. Should I go via g2 or f1?
Oh, there's one other thing you have to be careful about, Jen. Don't forget, I could play rook to d8, rook to d7, and then go pawn hunting with king b5.
I was hoping I would always be able to bail out with like c6 or a6 at the right moment.
Or I'm going to win a pawn.
Or rook b1 check, king c5, rook b7.
Okay, so let's give it a...
Let's make a king move.
Okay, should you like to play king g2?
Okay.
And then I'll go to, because I'm a pawn grabber.
And then king g3, so I'm trying to make some progress. King f4.
Okay. So I'm a pawn grabber. I want to take this little peshki.
Actually, that will just play king e5 and c6 and rook takes c6. Try to have fun that way.
So you protect the pawn so that after I grab your pawn, you want to go here, here, and you're just in time. Your next...
Hold on. I have an idea. I love these things when they happen.
Okay.
Could you back up a second?
Of course.
What if, put it back on c5, the pawn.
C5.
What if I play rook?
b1?
Rook b1 here.
Ooh, yeah, cut him off.
Cut him off at the pass.
Yeah. Ooh, b6, c6.
And I'm threatening to sacrifice and get two pass pawns. Now,
Okay.
what do you move?
Dead. You're
How
dead,
do you move? You have nothing to move?
You're done.
Or,
What?
just say Yas is dead. You know you want to
What?
F4, F.
say that.
I have more lives than a cat. Come on,
Can I
can't.
play for f4, f5, and then I gotta get the d5 square. Then you're dead.
It's legal.
F4,
it's
F5.
legal.
F4.
F4.
F4. Okay.
Okay, it's legal. It's a legal move. You're still.
Does g6 help you?
I don't know
That would-
why.
Black's going to run out of moves. Can Black ever play
G6.
rook d8? That's the question.
G6 stopping f5.
I'm not so happy about giving up this square for a second.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
f5.
Okay, the engine's going nuts for some reason. Why?
F5 now. Okay, I'll take that guy. And now okay, you want to play king d5 here, Jen?
Yeah, that was my idea, to play king d5 and c6 and just try to
Checkmate.
No, you have a
me.
better.
Just
no,
wait.
King D5, Rook A1 is a threat. Rook A1 and then take on A7.
King D5, you mean saying?
After King D5,
Right. The threat is to
the
play
threat is
Rook
play
A1.
Rook A1 and then take the pawn on A7 and then take the pawn on B7. And
Exactly.
black crashes through,
And
white crashes
Wow,
through
Rook
completely.
B1 is such an awesome move from before. That's
Wow.
awesome. That's a great, that belongs in like a lesson for kids about cutting off the king.
Patience.
Yes.
Patience.
About cutting
and
off the
being.
king. And crushing
Actually,
yes.
I
Yes.
wasn't. To be honest, I wasn't even trying to cut off the king. I was trying to sack on B7. It just so happens that both things worked out at the same time as well.
But I
You
think-
got a nice benefit there.
But our
Maybe-
king went from 0 to hero. You got to slow that king down.
And
Yes.
that was okay.
Yeah, with
I think you have to
F6.
be
So
really
we'll just
careful.
we'll just go right
Or
back.
G5 or something.
Okay, I was greedy. I have to confess, I was greedy, and I went for this pawn immediately.
So
and
F6 is
F6
simple.
is
That looks way better. Or what
way
about
better.
G5 before that? No, you like F6 better?
Well,
This
G5
is
gives
okay.
white a hook also.
Yeah.
White could play for H4 and F4.
okay.
If you
I
do
mean, the rook is actually very, very defensive-minded, but okay. Again, this is a pawn.
So King E4 now.
King E4 now, yeah, okay. And, well, in for a penny, in for a pound.
that. No, King D4.
King D. Oh, my king might get cut off again.
Yep. Same problem.
Oh, every time I want to take a pawn, a move like King C4 could really hurt.
Yep.
So those pawns,
Wow.
Pawns are protected.
those connected pass
They're-
pawns
they-
aren't too bad.
They're charmed.
It
They-
took what it is it took too long
it's
for you.
charming.
It took too long for you to win this pawn the way you were trying to win it with the Rook D8, Rook D7 maneuver.
I wanted to have my cake and eat it
Right, you
too,
wanted
right?
everything, but then that king came up so quickly that it was able to help out in this defense.
And I kind of
Very
wonder
nice.
about this way of playing King G2, G3, F4, E4, D4. That's 5 moves. F1, E2, D3, D4 is only 4. So did I choose the wrong path? The thing is, by going to G3, I forced you to spend a tempo on F6. But F1's
And that
actually
was-
closer to D4.
And that was a good...
A good move to induce?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Can we update the current position, by the way? Because
think
have they, Maurice, have reached our endgame? or
No,
not?
because Fabi improved on the position.
Okay,
a
when
different
we
way.
got it, he played King F8, C4, yes?
Well, we were, where were we? We were here.
Uh-huh.
King F8, C4, King E8.
Oh, they
Oh,
have
let me-
transposed into our
No, but there's a very
variation.
important move. So here, King E8. He played A6 immediately.
Okay,
And I'm going to turn off my auto update so that we
Gotcha.
can just analyze. Computer insists for it. All right, let's get you out of here first, and now come back. All right,
Okay.
now I should be able to control the board.
Yeah.
So King E8, A6 was
Right.
played. So right here, A6, B6, and then C5, King D7, CB6. So we're in a different position now. A7, Rook A8, and this happened very, very fast. This is a position that I was analyzing before we got caught up
Right.
in that position. And this one is better for black, no question, but white can bail out into several drawn endgames without any effort.
Right,
Because this
these
one
4 versus 3.
is going super fast into a draw. This pawn, it's difficult for black to corral this pawn because it's not easy just to bring the rook around. But he does have E5, King E6, and Rook D7 as a threat. But and he has in fact played the move E5 after King G2. So this is on the board. He plans to play here. It's all black for choice in terms of having the advantage over this, what looks like optically a good pass pawn, which clearly it is not. But we don't expect this to be anything but a draw, as Magnus has confidently gone to this ending saying, I know what I'm doing.
So we do have this current position on the board with E5 then?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And the times, Jennifer.
I don't
we
think they're
up-
relevant. They can't be relevant. It's too-
They've been playing a pretty good tempo.
Yeah,
Unlike yesterday,
exactly.
when Fabi
Fabi
really
was
was on his increments.
Fabi's been faster than Magnus in this game, though. That goes to show the
In fact-
quality of his preparation.
Right. It was almost like he had a 40-minute edge coming out of the opening advantage on the clock. So what can I say? This is just an equal ending.
Yeah,
Maurice?
equal and not that exciting, but I would like to go over we are today in chess, so we go over a lot of the happenings in the world of chess. And we have 2 nice tournaments that are taking place here in the club as we speak. They've gone on to now round 6 is where they're going to be entering. But it's 2 sections, A and B. At the top right now, we have Cuban Grandmaster Quesada Perez, who is leading the A group with Jeffrey Zhang, young Jeffrey Zhang of the U.S. right behind him. In the B group, Nicholas Theodorou of Greece is leading. And man, we were regaled yesterday, Yaz. You and I were watching this incredible analysis from this game. And I'm going to show you just this piece of it that will blow your mind. I knew it blew ours, the way this game went. Knight G4. I mean, look, first of all, look at the board. I mean, the board is completely insane. This knight on B3, black is up a pawn. Crazy position, but knight G4 highlighting this knight as a weakness, and black decided to play knight takes on G4, sacrificing 2 pieces, sacrificing the queen for 2 pieces, knowing that he had a pawn in his pocket, thinking he was going to get great play. His knight is hitting F2. This knight is coming back to D4. He hopes maybe to round up this pawn, but it's basically his counterplay that he was counting on. And white played this insane shot, D6, in the position. Now remember, white has a queen for 2 pieces. After bishop takes G2, he took on C7. Now black has 3 pieces for that queen, but the problem is the monstrosity sitting on the C7 square. After rook takes D1, rook takes, and bishop back. Now he has his 3 pieces. Suddenly rook to D8, and this pawn is a monster. Mate threats on the back row. Black played rook to F8, only to meet one of the most incredible moves and sequences you'll ever see in your life. The move queen to E4, placing the queen on prise by this bishop, all about trying to queen this pawn. After bishop takes F2 check, he couldn't play king F1 because of knight to D2, forking suddenly his king and queen and forcing this piece back out of the game, and black will be able to defend. Instead, however, he just played the cool, and he had seen it all. King to G2, not only the hanging piece, the self-pin as well, but it doesn't matter because it's still all about the pawn. After takes and takes, nothing at all to do about the C7 pawn. Black actually played rook takes. He was so impressed by his opponent's moves. He actually played rook takes and C takes D8 with a rook, mate, ending the game. Absolutely amazing sequence happening. Just shows you how incredible chess can be. By the way, Nicholas is only an IM? I don't think so. He's a 25-25 IM. Expect him to get his GM title quite soon. Greece certainly looking forward to seeing another GM in their ranks. What an amazing game.
Thank you, Maurice. It really was an amazing game. Again, that game is from a tournament taking place here at the St. Louis Chess Club, the Winter Chess Classic. And you can follow all the games on uschesschamps.com or .org?
.com with commentary.
And they have commentary.
Yeah, that's right. They've got Grandmaster Jesse Cry and Ben Simon from the St. Louis Chess Club YouTube channel. So be sure to tune in. I mean, there's just some incredible players.
Well, there's just so much happening in the world of chess these days. It's just amazing,
Our young stars, you know, we've been talking about 18-year-olds in the Women's World Championship, but we've got our best 18-year-olds in the U.S. chess right here, Jeffrey Zhang and Sam Sevian.
Exactly.
And they're playing right now in this very club.
And I think there was a game from the B group, by the way.
That's
Not
right.
even the A group,
yeah.
The B group? I mean, insane.
Well, as we get prepared for our first break of today, we do want to remind our viewers that we are going to have a special guest, featured guest, everybody's friend, Bruce Pandolfini, Jennifer.
That's right. We'll be on the line with Pandolfini as we see Game 2 of the World Chess Championship match between Carlsen and Caruana continue to build in its tension.
And we'll be back shortly.
You may have heard about St. Louis's world-class museums. Art, history, science, even magic. But you may not know we have an entire museum dedicated to play, with a 10-story slide and a Ferris wheel on top. Don't let all this family fun slide by you. Whose kids it is? St. Lou is always exploring.
Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second-best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University.
and welcome back to Today in Chess World Championship Edition, where we have Fabiano Caruana now in round 2, putting the pressure on Magnus Carlsen, as it's almost an inverse of yesterday, a reverse, where Magnus was making Fabi suffer with the black pieces. Is Fabi going to do the exact same thing to Magnus today, or do you think Magnus is going to escape a lot sooner?
Both. Both. I think it's going to be a draw, but I think that Fabi is more than happy to return the favor that he suffered through in game 1, as he does have an edge of an extra pawn in a rook and pawn endgame.
Exact same material distribution, by
Exactly.
the way. There's rook and 4 against rook and 3, and now
Yes.
rook and 3 against rook and 2. So
Right.
we have mirror image of yesterday. Black once again up a pawn in a rook and pawn ending.
Exactly.
That's what you would actually expect from players at this level. They're such refined players. You will not expect to see like the spectacular, crazy, wild game I just showed you before the break. Mating attacks generally don't occur at this level. Usually it's some very precise endgame play that you're going to have to figure out, because the player usually bails out when he sees that the position is under so much pressure. That's the art of defense at the 2800 level. They see the attack coming. They say, wait a minute, I got to shut that down long in advance. I'll give you a pawn for some kind of ending that maybe I can draw. And so you'll see a lot of these. Don't be surprised if you see maybe 6 or 7 rook and pawn endings at this very high level. That's the kind of thing that happens.
Who's going to be the first one to get an advantage with the white pieces, Yaz?
I know, that's been the problem, hasn't it? I mean, the player with the white pieces has just found himself in a disadvantage. Now, the strange part about today's game was that not only did Magnus not achieve anything with white, he really did it in slow motion as well. It was like he was the one who was at the board, surprised by the position, and he seemed to be spending a lot of time spinning his wheels and getting nowhere, Jen.
Well, you know, it plays into this whole question of pre-game preparation. Yesterday they played a fantastic clip on Today in Chess about Fabiano Caruana's preparation before the match. How it wasn't just all about openings, but it was also about other elements. But I think one thing about preparation is players spend a lot of time on black.
Yes, they do.
Sometimes, you know, there's more at stake. You can get blown off the board with the black pieces.
Exactly.
They want to make sure they're covered up and there's no accidents.
That's right.
Sometimes they, by comparison, they run out of time to go over every potential opening with the white pieces. Like, you don't know whether Magnus is going to play the Sicilian or the Berlin.
Exactly.
So, of course, they put lots of work in. But I think what you're seeing in these first 2 games is great preparation with black, great conceptions with black.
Right, and nothing really is being shown with white, like yesterday's F4 novelty by Fabi with just natural play. The novelty was defanged very easily, and then suddenly black was simply better.
Well, but it also transposed into known lines until that G5, which was really the new novelty from that board position. That board position hadn't been seen before. And his idea of G5 with knight G6 was the new idea. And I think now, as white, if you go into this kind of formation, you're going to say, what am I going to do about what Magnus did? And he almost shut down the line. My old trainer, Gregory Kaidanov, who helped me on my path to becoming a grandmaster many years ago, he told me something very significant. And I'll never forget the words he used. He said, nowadays, white has nothing and black is equalizing everywhere. And we were brought up in the idea, you've got white, you should get some kind of small pull, some kind of edge.
That's right.
But the way that used to happen, of course, white press, maybe even sacrificed the pawn for initiative and was able to make trouble for black. Nowadays with computers, black goes, okay, is this sacrifice correct? And they put it in the computer goes, no, you just play this, this, and this. The position's equal. There's nothing here. There is no initiative. And that's the problem that players with white face now, is that they're not playing against their opponent, they're playing against a computer, and they can't just sacrifice because both sides know that the sacrifice is dubious. And so that edge white used to just expect just about no longer exists in any of the classical openings, which are well-founded on great principles. So that's the challenge they face. Magnus usually resolves this issue by avoiding theoretical battles. He likes to get into any kind of position. He's not looking for the edge. He's just looking for a playable position that has some kind of durability. That, yes, we can sit here and play 30, 40, 50 moves, not see liquidation in 25, 30. That becomes too easy for black to do. That's what he usually does. So I don't expect Magnus to go after Fabi with the white pieces, and I don't expect him to look for any big edge. He just wants a sustainable position that maybe he can outmaneuver Fabi in the middle game and then eventually in the end game.
Yeah, good point. I mean, it's all about getting those playable positions, and at the very highest level, it is very hard to get the playable position, so to speak. Now, Maurice, if I can put you on the spot in terms of this exact position. I'm playing in the Millionaire Open. It's the last round, and I have to win this position with black. If, in your mind, is there a way I could trick my opponent here with the black pieces, and does Fabi have any chances whatsoever?
I would say you just take your second place and be happy.
Well, I mean, I was hoping that you would go for the E3 and go King G3 ideas. Remember, yesterday we were trying to get the two connected pass pawns for Magnus that might have won him the game. So here I'm thinking that if I'm in Fabi's shoes, I want to play for an E3.
You just can't get it.
I can't get it? Why not?
How? How do you get it?
Well, okay, he played rook G6. So let's say we go rook A7, right? And now I go E3. How come I can't get it? So my idea is that if you take, I want to play King G3 and take this pawn so that I can have the two connected pass pawns.
Yeah, we're not giving you that.
Of course not.
So I have a couple of ways to play. But
For
I'm
sure.
going to play my just like instinctive response.
Okay.
King E2.
King.
Actually, my most instinctive response was either rook A4 or rook F7. So
Rook
I
F7
lied.
check, yeah.
I lied when I said the instinctive response. But I'm going to play one that I think neutralizes everything. I'm going to play King E2.
King to E2. Okay.
So now rook G2 is met by rook A4. Check. Let's point that out.
That's annoying.
to the viewers.
After rook G2 accomplishes nothing, rook check will force my king away from the pawn, so that king takes E3, ends all
he
the
did
efforts.
was just throw a pawn away.
Exactly. So you went. You went
So
king E2.
And now I'm threatening to take your pawn. No,
No.
I'm threatening check. Excuse me. I'm threatening
Now
check.
you're threatening the same
for real.
check. This is the real
Either
check.
check, I'm threatening.
Right.
So it looks like with your pawn now under attack twice,
I've got
because
that.
I have two separate checks to deal with, you have to take me on F2 now,
Right.
which looks forced. And if I play king takes, then
Then-
what do? You can't
then
play
I
rook
can't.
G3 because I have a check and win your rook.
Right.
To me, this feels like a double mistake ask, where it's one of those things that in order to win the game for black, white needs to make a couple of errors.
It needs to be cooperative, like really cooperative.
Doubly cooperative.
Right. Right. I
Follow up the mistake with another mistake.
and keep and on a roll and on a roll and so on and so on. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well.
Also, because rook S7 check also seemed okay, pushing your king to G5, then maybe I can take on E3.
Right.
And again, draw. But rook B4 was actually Magnus's choice, stopping any of that business directly.
No E3s on
What a
tap.
shocker. He has other ways to draw.
You don't think we're down to only moves yet?
Not only.
This reminds me of yesterday. Black's got zip, and Black's going to look around and see what he can do and try to torture the guy, but he's got zip.
But I got to give Magnus some real credit, because yesterday he did have some really, cruel traps
Yeah, I don't think
that
there
he
is-
set. And Fabi
Yeah.
avoided them. There were some really brilliant ones. Now, I don't think Fabi will be able to construct some of those really hidden gems that Magnus managed yesterday. That was remarkable. I thought it was really easily drawn, but Magnus found some ways of making Fabi's life awkward. And there he is.
And I wonder what, and I'm hearing that it is indeed a draw, because I was wondering
official.
what is going through Fabi's mind in this position. Will he try to torture Magnus? But it just seems random. This kind of position seems random to try to torture him. And the fact that they have drawn the first two games bodes well, though, for Fabi. This was an easy draw for him. This
Yes,
was
it was.
effortless. And that's a good feeling going into the rest day, knowing that you now get your chance on how to hit the guy back. We
On
said with the
Monday.
white pieces on Monday, but again, it's just a toss-up. It's going to be a terrific fight, and we're seeing that these players. This game to me showed just how even they are, because Fabi just did his thing and settled it all down.
Well, there we have it. We've got 2 draws in the World Championship, so we're at 1-1. Our show, we're going to continue as we get Bruce Pandolfini on the line and also speculate how this bodes for the rest of the match.
We have other features
But
as well. There's a lot
really
of other features we have in the second hour, so don't go away. We've got a lot of good stuff left.
Don't go away, but we have... what I was going to say, is I actually like this decision not to grind this out because it's pretty clear Magnus is going to draw this.
Yes.
And I'm imagining Fabi right now. It's probably about 6 p.m. in London right now, 6:30.
More or less.
You know, he needs to start. He's got like almost 48 hours or almost 48 hours, like 42 hours until he has to play this game 3 against Magnus Carlsen. I predicted game 3 was going to be the first decisive game of the match. This is my prediction, and I like this.
So you want him to get home and rested and charge the battery.
Yeah, 'cause we're not playing that Rasalimo again, guys. No. We need to try something different. That's, it's so strategic. Because in that game, what happened was it was actually Magnus's masterful, genius, strategic ideas that gave him the edge.
Exactly.
On the surface, it looked okay for Fabi. I mean.
Well, let's just talk quickly between ourselves for games 1 and 2. For me, it's always been a feeling out process, right? What are the primary openings going to be? What are the primary defenses going to be? Am I in good shape? Do I feel myself? Is my head working? Get rid of the first jitters. This is €1 million event. So, was it a good thing? These 2 draws, good start for the match?
I think it was a good start for the match.
For both players?
Not necessarily. I think they're going to say we had the 2 draws. That's normal between them. Most of their games end in draws. Let's be blunt. Most of their games end in draws. Magnus had his chance. That first game would be the one that Magnus is kicking himself and saying, I could be up right now.
Good point.
Right? But otherwise, the 2 draws would be a very normal result for the beginning of a match. In fact, I believe it's the last 5 matches have ended. 4 of them have ended in 2 draws to start, these 12-game matches. So it's pretty normal to see that happen.
Very good. And Jennifer, we do have our guest.
That's right. We have Bruce Pandolfini on the line, first coach of Fabiano Caruana. Now, he's watching him in the biggest stage of chess. Welcome to the show, Bruce. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you doing?
We're doing great.
Bruce, we've been buddies for 30-plus years, man.
I wish you wouldn't bring up the number.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while, of course.
Kindergarten pals.
Of course.
Yeah.
You gave me my first job. I was coach as a chess player back with the Raging Rooks in Harlem. We were doing that chess program in New York City with America's Chess Foundation, which now is the Chess in the Schools program, which has been teaching.
Well, I knew you'd be great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that endorsement and the work we did together. Now, of course, you are Fabi's first trainer. It's hard to say you see talent right away, but did you see talent right away?
Oh, yes, very definitely. I couldn't have predicted this, of course. But it was clear he just loved chess so much and was very focused and could do all kinds of things in his head right away. And you're often tipped off if you watch a child, a gifted child at the board, first learning chess and getting into it. There's a lot of eye movement, a lot of attentive, focused eye movement, and you can see that in Fabiano right away. And, of course, chess being a game of spatial relations, your thinking is reflected in that the movement of your eyes. So that was pretty obvious. But it was also obvious that he was a fighter. He was very determined, and he'd want to play positions out and prove that he could hold. I used to try to instill in him the motto, fight like Patinet, fight like Patinet. And I think we can see that in him now. He fights. He gave us a heroic defense yesterday, and he was certainly pushing it today. Although he's up against a chess genius, so hopefully things will turn his way.
Now, he's Mr. Cool Calm, Bruce. We know a lot of times the youngins, they could be a little bit bratty sometimes, little chess kids. How did he act when he lost games? Was he always this cool?
I think so. He seemed pretty unemotional. He didn't cry a lot, talented kids, when they lose, they get all upset. Many of them cry. It's normal. Fabiano didn't do that. Or if he did, only a couple of times. He was very calm, very composed.
That's still the case now. Now, we know you taught him for a couple of years, but then you passed him off to another famous trainer, Maurice Ashley. Tell us about that collaboration and how that bore fruit.
Well, Maurice and I worked together on many things. We're in similar programs, or together. We worked in the same classrooms. Maurice is one of the world's great chess coaches. If people aren't familiar with him, he's a terrific trainer. And he's had many champions he's brought to the forefront and developed nicely. And he and I worked together very well. So it was easy to transition from me to Miran. Generally, when I have a gifted kid, I try to take him or her to about 1,800, and then we find someone else. I don't think you should have the same teacher forever. I've said everything I had to say at that point, and it was time for some new ideas. And Miran certainly supplied them.
What ages was Fabi when you worked with him?
I first gave him lessons late 5 to just about the age of 8, maybe a couple of months of 8. But already he was working with Miran fairly regularly. How many sessions did Fabiano take? I think he tried to take at least 2 sessions a week. And what we worked on several things. First, rook and pawn endings a lot. We went to Levenfish and Smyslov. It's pretty obvious he likes rook and pawn endings. There was a big Russian book by Lisitsyn, with tactics and stratagems in it, and we kind of worked through that. But we also played through the game collections of Alyekin, Botvinnik, Fischer 60 Memorable, and we looked at the games of Kasparov, Karpov, Korchnoi quite heavily.
Wow, that sounds
we would
like
play a little bit.
Oh yeah.
In those days, I could still beat him.
What was his favorite thing to do? Was he like all about, Bruce, when do I get to play you in Blitz? Or was he like really into the tactics? Like what did he look forward to the most about the lessons with you?
Well, I think he liked the tactics, and he had to always do it in his head. And he wasn't. If you touched a piece, it was wrong, even if you were right. The way I approached it. And he was a very fine analyst. He could hold all kinds of complex, intricate positions in his mind, and I think you can see that now. He can work through really tricky situations with a clear vision. It's very impressive. I think it started there in some of those early sessions, but I also think he had it in him, and we just kind of brought it out.
What you mentioned is something that I've noticed with some of the young players I've worked with, and actually the older ones that I tell them to go back, is how you worked on the classics now and the history of chess. And Fabi has made some statements that has shown that he knows the classics. He knows the old games, the whole world champions. And you just listed Fischer and Alekhine and Botvinnik. You must have rooted him right away in the good stuff.
Yeah, the main idea today started there in many of those games. And I think it's very important. I think young talents today tend to neglect those paradigms. I think that's a mistake. I'm not sure they all have the same chess culture that many people did in the past. On the other hand, they have great tools. It's hard to deny that at the top now players seem to be stronger, 2,800 plus players.
Right.
But Carlsen and Caruana well, especially Carlsen is very famous for being obsessed with the classics and chess history and not only knowing the games, but having them memorized down to the date and place.
Right. Yeah, well, it's not easy to be world champion these days.
Not easy at all, Bruce.
Speaking of which, you were very much involved in the other great American matchup, Fischer versus Spassky. You were doing co-commentary back in the day in 1972. If that's not going to tell your age, Bruce, then you're in trouble right there. Tell us what it was like, the fever pitch it was in '72, and how you first became a star because of doing commentary on that match, along with, of course, Shelby Lyman.
Well, Shelby was the anchor. He was great. None of us were TV people. It was Shelby, Edmar Mednes, Eugene Meyer, myself, and a few others. none of us had any experience with television at all, and I think that made it a very appealing show. We all made mistakes. Nothing like your show is now, where you have so much experience and supportive technology and stuff. We were bare bones, a demo board, Shelby up there moving the pieces, and there were some hilarious moments.
Yeah.
It was live television; things couldn't be edited out.
It was all very authentic, Bruce.
What was that, Yasser?
It was all very authentic.
Oh, yes, very much so. And we made plenty of mistakes.
Right.
From saying, giving a line for white when it was really black or whatever. That kind of thing happened a lot. I wasn't actually on screen much. Shelby was the main one on.
Right.
And he did a fantastic job. It was really something. There was some interesting incidents, if I recall. They had Rosalimo on one day, and it was quite clear he was inebriated. And
Nicholas Rosalimo,
Shelby asked him some. What's that?
I was just saying, Nicholas Rosalimo, Grandmaster, whose variation
was
played yesterday, in fact.
That's exactly right. That's why I mentioned it. Rosalimo was brilliant, but he had been drinking too much.
Okay.
Shelby asked him some question about the position, and he went on. He said, "This position is interesting. It reminds me of a game played by Yugoslav master whose name begins with an M." He could not remember. It was clear he wasn't. They had to cut and get him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like we couldn't come on the air doing that stuff for sure. Yasser, have you been inebriated in any broadcast?
Not that I recall.
Not that you- but
Hey, there might have been some Bloody Marys.
the question
How
though,
dare you?
we see this the big press following that we're getting now, all the press people that wanted press passes for this match. Do you see this as anything like Fischer-Spassky? Tell us what that was like.
Well, of course, that was front page New York Times coverage every day, and also it was on the news, the network news shows, especially after the second game. Fischer had forfeited, and supposedly the Secretary of State Kissinger had to intervene, whether or not it's true. It seems to be true. So there was a lot of attention. People were very excited about Fischer. It was the Cold War, the raw-boned American against the Soviet army of experts. It was just tremendous attention because of that. Also, Bobby Fischer was an incredibly exciting personality in the public's eyes. If you knew him in private, he wasn't entirely like that. He was just a guy.
Right.
Brilliant guy.
Do you see this as having any equivalencies between then and now? Do you feel like we could have the same explosion in chess in the United States if Fabi wins as we had then when Fischer won?
It's possible. Certainly there'll be great attention being an American taking the title. And he's such a deserving young man. He's really worked for this. He's a really good guy. I think he could represent the title very well, and could be an American hero. So, yeah, it's possible. I'm not sure it will rival the Fischer time, but it will be very significant. And I can see chess really developing even more greatly because of it. So,
Bruce, was there anything that ever surprised you about Fabi and his career? Any kind of thing that shocked you about his path?
Well, probably. I always knew him to be a great talent, capable of wonderful achievements. I think when he had that great run at the Sinquefield Cup,
right,
was it 2014? That was truly remarkable,
right,
and very exciting. And that certainly turned all our heads. Wow! I mean, I knew him to be amazing, but wow!
That was a wow moment.
And finally, Bruce, let me ask you this question. On a personal note, knowing that you were the first trainer of somebody who becomes a challenger to the World Championship title, I mean, any trainer has got to think that that's just absolutely a stunning thing. How does it feel for you to know that You started it all for this young man.
I certainly feel very good that I had been a part of his early life. There were other teachers. They all deserve credit as well. What I tried to give him was simply my love for the game. He did all the rest. But I'm very, very happy for him. I had one other really happy moment. I mean, maybe I'll have another one, hopefully at the end of this match. But when Fischer won the championship after that 21st game, I don't think I was ever happier for another human being who wasn't related to me than that day. I really felt that some kind of great justice had been done. I'm hoping to experience something similar to that here.
Well said, Bruce. And of course, being modest, you have written so many books, trained so many champions. Certainly one of the great American stories, what you have contributed to chess in the United States, and a great friend as well. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll all be happy, too, if Fabi can pull this one out. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Maurice. Jennifer, Yasser, be well.
Thank you.
You so
too.
much.
You too, Bruce.
Such an insightful interview. I mean, I think that Bruce is really one of the pioneers of this idea that chess, it's not just about chess, that it's about spatial reasoning, eye coordination, the general intelligence of young people.
Yeah.
And that holistic approach, I
Yeah,
think is
exactly.
so important, not just for raising champions like Fabiano, but just for raising more intelligent and productive members of society.
Agreed, all around. No, seriously, you're absolutely right. This really feeling of getting into know the person and building them up, from positive reinforcement and confidence and everything. As I was listening to Bruce speak, as the same thought that I had about Magnus kind of went through my head. Yeah, there is an amazing thing about Fabi that is just so unique, and that is this idea that they just kept going up and up and up. Maybe a little bit of plateauing, but for both Magnus and for Fabi, they just kept rising like a meteor. There was no massive fall off. A lot of my junior players, we had thrills and spills galore. I mean, we would. One tournament we could gain 50 rating points. Another tournament we might lose 50 rating points. We don't see that down swings.
I think one of the reasons for that is something
Fabi.
that Fabi said in an interview. There's been so many mainstream articles out these last a couple weeks. I can't remember which one it was, but in one he was quoted as saying how important it is to study and work hard even when you're winning.
Yeah.
And I think that's the missing ingredient that a lot of players, well, how are you going to celebrate the Sinkfield Cup? Are you just going to go on vacation to Bali for a few weeks?
Right.
No, I'm probably going to keep working on chess.
Exactly.
Maybe if he wins this, he'll take a break. But
cut himself some slack.
I think that's part of the way that these guys stay at the top. They're never satisfied, even if they're winning, even if they're #1 in the world, even if they're having the best year ever. He keeps pushing, how could I have played better?
Absolutely.
How can I get even better?
Right. That's, I think, what elite players constantly are trying to do, is they're truth seekers. They're trying to look at, for example, today's game. And I'd like to get back to today's match for just a second, if I can, Maurice, because something obviously went wrong for Magnus. Where was the novelty in this game? And where did things go wrong? As white, you're not supposed to end up a pawn down in a rook and pawn ending, right? I mean, we were saying, okay, Gregory Kaidanov told you that the position's equal. It's not supposed to be worse for white. So where did things fall off the rails today for Magnus?
Well, the question is definitely going to be that moment, that move that was played, not frequently seen, rook to d8, this move that's supposed to be challenged, as Jesse Cry said, GM Jesse Cry, who's a grandmaster in residence at the club now, said knight d2 is the question mark. What do you do after knight d2? White is carrying out this maneuver to get the knight over to b3, also threatening the move b4 in many positions, and that's supposed to be the critical way to play against rook d8, as rook d8 is not supposed to make any real progress in this position. So knight d2 is the big question mark. When he played the move bishop to e2 instead, suddenly knight e4 appeared on the board, and now white has to be very careful. In fact, he castled and allowed his pawns to be split. This became a permanent feature in the position, did not change. Despite anything that happened next, we can make several moves, and you'll see Magnus was not able to alter the pawn structure. And look again, his pawns were further split, although this pawn now came to the square. And after this trade, we saw this endgame and the bad pawns. So the critical moment was that moment when rook d8 happened, and he did not question the move, ended up in a bad pawn formation. Knight d2, for all the things that it does, knight d2 also stops the knight from going to e4 as well. So that's been the critical move for years and years and years. The fact that Magnus did not, first of all, the fact that rook d8 appeared on the board at all means Fabi has some special preparation going, and the fact that he didn't play the move knight d2 shows white not only didn't get an advantage, but he even got a little tiny disadvantage as well. So that's the critical moment that right now Magnus's seconds are looking at and saying, why didn't you play knight d2? Okay, we get why you didn't play, but if he plays this again, let's go check to see if this is right, what he did.
Exactly. So essentially, you're saying, as a consequence of that opening misstep by Magnus not taking up the challenge with knight d2, he found himself actually slightly worse due to his pawn structure, and then he ended up having a rear guard action of I've got to draw the game.
I'm not sure that the move that not playing knight d2. I mean, obviously you can play a move like bishop to d3, for example. The move bishop to e2, though, is one that says I'm not going to do anything to bother black.
Okay.
Right? I'm just going to try to castle.
Right.
That's the kind of move you make when you're afraid of preparation. You look at it, you start going, I don't want to get caught by something. You know what? Let me just get out of the middle. And so you just put bishop e2 on the board. So I just got to get out of the middle.
Right.
That's it. All right. And that's what this is. This move says, I've already developed a piece. I'm going to move it twice. I'm still caught in the middle of the board with my king, but I am starting to make some consequential threats against the position. Knight b3 is one, right? This move is in the position. b4 is another idea that's in the position. I've dealt with this pin along this diagonal. I've shut down anything like knight e4. Takes is just ridiculous because something will take on c4 like a knight probably.
With tempo.
With tempo. So knight d2 is absolutely the critical move. But the moment rook d8 appeared on the board, the alarms went off in his head. And I'm sure he's thinking, of course I know knight d2 is the move. But if I play it, I'm walking right into this guy's preparation that he's been doing for months. And it could be literally months that Fabi has had this in his back pocket waiting to drop the bomb on some 2800, and it happened to be Magnus staring in front of him, and he said, okay, I dare you to play the main line because I am well prepared against it. So this is where we're going to ask all the questions. And Jesse Cry said it bluntly. He said, this is a bluff. He doesn't believe it. I bet you he doesn't play it again. So we will wonder what drama will happen with 2 days from now in game 4, if we will see this board position again. That is when matches start to get intriguing as people start shooting at your openings.
Thank you, Maurice. And we have one of our favorite people in the world, Jennifer, on the line.
That's right. From London, we have Rex Singfield, the founder and president of the St. Louis Chess Club, to give us some insight into the atmosphere in London. Hello, Rex.
You folks are just too kind. It's nice to call you from the mother country. So the atmosphere, I sent you an email, Jennifer. You'll get it shortly, I think. The atmosphere is electric. The place where they have it it's been pretty well thought out. The main hall for the visitors to sit and look hasn't been too well thought out. The benches, they're just benches. There's no chairs with backs. But they've done a very good job of sheltering the playing area from the street noise. You cannot hear any street noise.
That's good.
So that's excellent. And they have a lot of side rooms for the media, for people to watch the presentations, etc.
Are you getting accosted for your autograph for the Singfield Cup books, Rex?
Oh, my goodness, Yasser, it's ridiculous. In the email I sent Jennifer, I said I got waylaid today by 7 foreign journalists.
What?
2 from Holland. 2 from Holland, because one said, well, you gave an interview to Channel 2, so now we want to do one. So I'm getting involved in these, internecine conflicts.
Absolutely.
And not in Holland, in Norway, I'm sorry.
Right.
And then Germany and Yugoslavia, so a lot of them, 7 of them today.
Well, keep your neutrality, Rex. Remember, we just want to see good games, good fights. May the best man win.
And Rex, of course, we know that you're a huge Fabi fan. You've done so much to promote chess in the country that made it attractive for him to come back and not only move just to the United States, but also to St. Louis. So I don't expect you to be objective. But that said, what do you think so far? What's the feel from the Fabi and the Magnus camp? Who's going to win this match?
Well, everybody, I got to tell you, just listening to the gossip and small conversations going on all over the place, people were very impressed with Fabiano today. Yeah. And someone said, this guy's just reeling off his moves. He said, man, he was ready for Magnus. And I think it's pretty safe to say that's true. So the feeling is electric. There's a lot of different rooms where you can view the commentary from Judith Polgar and some blonde that's with her.
Anna Rudolph.
Of course, the commentary doesn't come any. Yeah, right. I won't say anything on the air, but it's nothing like the great commentary that you people do. I can only thank you so much. You guys are absolutely brilliant and wonderful.
You're too biased.
And,
well, two great women indeed, but I mean, it's all about the Spectrum Studios and Silverback. That really brings this show to the next level, I believe.
Yeah. And how about yourself, Rex? How many? You're there with a group of spectators. How big is how big are the crowds?
I would say in the main viewing area, the main room to view it. It's probably 200 people. That's about all it holds. And then there are a bunch of side rooms for media and other people viewing on screens. Probably cumulatively, I'd be surprised if that's more than 150.
Okay.
So you're looking at 350. I thought it might be bigger.
Right.
But all in all, I think they've done a good job. We're learning a lot when we get ready to have one of these in St. Louis to understand exactly what we have to do and where we can improve.
Excellent.
But it's a pleasure being here, and I really enjoyed Maurice's comparison to Bobby Fischer. I think that comparison is not only appropriate, but it's inevitable, because it really, in some ways, is the precursor to a match like this.
Right.
Rex, it's like you read my mind, because I was dying to jump in to ask that question. You, of course, were a fan at that time in '72. Compare that to now. How does that feel?
Well, it's hard to compare because, of course, we had that wonderful thing going called Cold War.
Yeah.
And that created an amazing backdrop to an almost impossible kind of situation, a lone American basically by himself without much help from others against a Soviet who has help from all over the universe. And the lone American proves victorious. And it was symbolic of what people were looking for in the Cold War as well. But the media hype then certainly exceeds what we're getting right now, although the media hype is really picking up, I would say. But with Fischer, it was front-page news. I heard your interview with Bruce Pandolfini, and he's right. It was not just front-page news with the New York Times. It was front-page news with everybody, every newspaper. And they're publishing the scores of the games every day. I lived in Chicago, and walking home to the station each night, Marshall Field store, a very upscale department store, had the final position of the game that day set up in the window.
Wow.
It was just crazy.
That said, right now there's such great infrastructure for chess. I wasn't around then, but I think, with millions of people playing online, on chess.com, Lee Chess, with the St. Louis Chess Club being the capital of chess, according to Gary Kasparov, not just in the States, but in the world. U.S. Chess, I mean, you've got a lot of infrastructure now that you might not have had then. So yes, maybe it's big media, but there's more for people who love chess because of this to do.
Right.
Oh yeah, there's certainly many, many more chess players, hundreds of times more actively playing in the world today than back then, just because of changes in population, but also, as Jennifer said, because of changes in technology.
Exactly.
That's a big assist in that regard. And a lot of people came up. Everybody seems to be aware of St. Louis, and they were very kind in all their compliments and thank yous and all of that. It was kind of nice to be recognized that the world seems to be aware of what we're doing there in a View 3. And so it's all wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you're getting the accolades you and Jeannie so properly deserve, because frankly, Rex, when I go to events like the Chess Olympiad, I get a lot of people coming up to me and saying, wow, what you do and your show at St. Louis is so great, and all my students this and blah, blah, blah. I mean, all of that.
Incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It really is, and I'm glad you're getting it. It's deserved.
It shows we're making a huge impact, and you guys are making a huge impact. But, you know, when you have the 3 best commentators in the world, what do you expect?
Well, thank you, Rex.
Rex, when are you coming home?
I am returning to the colonies tomorrow.
The colonies are expecting your return.
Wonderful, Rex. Well, enjoy your last day in London. It's great to have you on the show. I'm sure we're going to be hearing from you more when you're here in St. Louis.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
Go Fabi.
Go Fabi.
Okay, absolutely. Go Fabi. Thank you so much, folks.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
See you,
Thank you
Rex.
for
Bye,
the call, Rex.
Indeed.
Well, that was a special treat.
Well, Rex loves us so much.
Yeah, he wanted to get it on the
He's
show. I understand,
No,
but it's
no.
still a special treat. Normally, he'd be off to dinner in London at this point of the day.
That's right. Well,
Right.
of course, it's great to hear from Rex, who was, of course, there with his wife, Dr. Jeannie Sinkfield, who he founded the club with, as well as Joy Bray, the general manager of the club. And, you know, Ian, I had forgotten that Ian wrote about that, but Ian echoed Rex's thoughts about how the conditions might not be that good for the media, but they're really good for the players.
Yeah.
Meaning that
The quietude of the
yes,
playing hall.
that they're very well, that it's really beautiful the way that you can see the players, and it's also beautiful how they're also sheltered from the fanfare, so that you're able to see them, but they're not able to hear you.
Okay.
So that they made that setup really better than others in the past, and Rex certainly echoed that. I also heard good things about the commentary room, that it's kind of small, but that people are really enjoying it, and that Woody Harrelson actually joined Anna Rudolph
And Judith
Polgar
in the commentary
room. So
Okay.
you kind of have to wonder what his insights were. But
Yeah,
of course,
gotta keep
having
them
celebrities involved in chess is always great.
Of course. Oh, no, it's absolutely marvelous. And Woody actually has visited quite a number of chess events, including Garry Kasparov when he was playing against Jan Timman in Prague many, many years ago. Maurice, jump in here with your thoughts about things so far.
Well, this has just been such a great batch, and I love when we start talking about the history of the World Championships, because we have had such great champions throughout history, and the youngsters, or players young and old, should definitely go back, look at your classics, look at those great players who have paved the way for the modern era. We said it, you heard Bruce Pandolfini say it. He taught Fabi the classics right away. He was going over the great players of the past, and those are names that have shown the way, the paradigm. I like the way he used that word. They were the paradigms for today. They showed us certain things about chess that only those great geniuses could come up with. And so we've done a number of fireside chats that we're going to begin today. We're going to begin one of the features today, and we're going to start with the very first official world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz, and his reign, and also the player who eventually defeated him. Please take a look as we go to break and enjoy. Guys, the World Championships have been so much fun throughout history. We've had these great champions. And I really liked Steinitz's contribution to chess. You know, when I read about Steinitz, and the guy was the 9th of 13 children, grew up in poverty, to actually become the world champion is something pretty spectacular.
The first official world champion, right, Yaz?
Right. Well, and that's really bugs me a lot, because I grew up with Paul Morphy. Let me be clear. I thought the guy's games were brilliant. In the 1850, there's no question. This guy was dominant player.
The best player on the planet, no question.
No question. 1860, Steinitz, yeah, Anderson. Those guys are really doing it. But why isn't there a world championship? Why isn't there an official world championship? We have to wait till 1886.
Well, they hadn't arranged it yet. They hadn't set it up. There was no organization. In fact, that was the age of the private world championships. And
exactly.
The fact was that Steinitz had dominated everybody. He'd won something like 27 out of 29 matches, beating Anderson and Blackburn and Bird. He's like showed, I'm the man. Right. So he says, I'm the world champion, but then Zukertort shows up.
Well, then he got
in
into
the 1870s.
writing, right?
Then he got into writing, into magazine.
And so he kind of slipped a little bit. People began questioning his dominance.
Well, he wasn't playing so much because he was busy writing all the time.
There you go. That's
but then Zukertort shows up and he starts playing and he starts dominating. And suddenly, both of them are saying, well, I'm the best.
So finally in 1886,
they come to an agreement.
Right.
I mean, that's what's fascinating if you look at these like negotiations and like how everything was up for debate from because it was the first world championship, from the time control to the prize fund to the rules. And of course, what fascinates me is the rules are so different than they are now, in that there were so many decisive games back in those days that you could say the first to win 8 games.
it was not a problem.
Or 10 games.
Or 10 games,
Yeah.
not a problem. It's not going to be
The
a problem.
fact is, those matches, for example, that one, the first one, Stein and Zukertort, they finally come to an agreement. They finally decided we're going to do it. They played in the U.S., which was awesome. They started in New York, of course, my hometown, so awesome still.
They come to St. Louis.
But they start with victories.
Right.
Steinitz hits him in the first, and then Zukertort
Bam,
knocks
bam,
him
bam.
4 games in a row.
Right.
And it's like, what? You don't see that these days.
4 games in a row losing and you still don't win the match?
And you, still, and you still don't win the match.
And you get crushed.
Dominated. Well, Steinitz turned it around here in St. Louis.
Right, that's exactly. And then it finishes up in New Orleans. So now we got Steinitz. He's the world champion. And then, how do you challenge the guy?
Well, there's still that you got to put up bids, and the
You
world
got to
champion
raise the money yourself.
exactly, and the world champion is saying, if you don't come up with this kind of dough,
This amount.
you're not going to challenge me. And people,
I'm not going to accept the challenge.
people, can you imagine these days if Carlsen said, "Nah, Fabio, unless you come up with 2-3 mil, you can't challenge me."
Chess
I mean,
finance
that's what it was
reform.
like.
Yeah,
Right.
but you know, before we go on to Lasker, I did want to point out how crazy it is that Steinitz began his championship victory here in St. Louis, and I say that because in New York he kind of got squashed, right?
Right.
So in history, we think of St. Louis as the turning point where Steinitz became the champion.
Right.
And actually, this year in the Sinquefield Cup, we honored that occasion by putting a plaque at the venue, and you officiated that.
Unfurled the banner, that huge banner, yeah.
It took a lot of days, by the way,
Yeah.
after they finished the St. Louis leg before they ended up going to New Orleans. It took something like 12 days. And apparently they played whist. They played cards.
In
In the
waiting
same
for
place while they were waiting. They're just hanging out playing cards.
Hey, that sounds
And then
like Carlsen and Caruana.
Yeah.
Like
Playing
buddy,
Avalon or
Like,
something.
can you imagine?
Hey, you're going too far, too fast. Come on. But Steinitz becomes the first,
Official world champion.
but beyond that, he becomes like the first chess scientist. He introduces the idea that really there's something much more about the game, and that you can take a very scientific approach to numerous positions, especially technical positions. I really give that guy a lot of credit for 2 bishops versus bishop and knight endings. Steinitz, man, he showed how to win those types of endings.
Well,
That's
he's
really,
considered
really remarkable.
he's considered the father of positional chess, as a matter of fact, and all those
Exactly.
principles that he brought out. He's a little quirky.
Very quirky,
Leaving
by
his
the way.
king in the middle of the board in a lot of positions. In those
Nah.
king's gambit positions where his king is on E2
Yeah.
by move 3 or 4.
Right.
But his defensive skills, he showed us a different level that you had to prepare your attacks away from the romantic age. But then he loses to his ultimate student, a guy who gives him all the respect in the world, Emanuel Lasker.
Exactly. And we have the period of Emanuel Lasker, one of the longest world champion ever, who held the world championship the longest. And he just did amazing. It was sort of like he rose to the occasion whenever there was occasion. And I'm thinking particularly about a New Yorker, Frank Marshall.
Oh, he killed Marshall. He killed Marshall.
But the reason and how and the why that he killed him goes to show who Emanuel Lasker was. And the story is, I don't know if it's myth, but the story is Marshall loses to
and welcome back to Today in Chess World Championship Edition. As we have two draws, my brother Greg Shahade tweeted that he's enjoying the World Championship of drawing pawn down rook endgame.
Yes.
Which is so far what it's been.
Yes. Take your lessons, Greg, when you can. You got to learn those being a pawn down, how to save them.
Yeah, somebody paraphrased what you said, Greg, a long time ago.
Yeah.
All rook endgames are drawn.
There you have it.
Everything
Actually,
old is new again.
There you go. I'm still reflecting on the conversation interview we had with Bruce Pandolfini, where he was teaching his young protege, Fabiano, to fight like Botvinnik. And I was thinking, well, when I was a kid, I was growing up, I wanted to learn how to kick like Mark Spitz. Mark Spitz was the famous swimmer who won 7 gold medals in a single Olympiad. So I wanted to learn to kick like Mark Spitz. And Fabiano learned how to fight like Botvinnik, and other generations of Americans only wanted to be like Mike. How about you, Maurice? Did you have something in your chess upbringing that was your wellspring of chess strength?
Fight like
Michael Tall?
No, fight like you came out of Brooklyn. I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and we had a phrase, never ran, never will.
Never ran, never will.
That's right, never ran, never will. You meet somebody from Brownsville, if they don't know that, they're not from Brownsville.
Right.
Never ran, never will. BK all the way. So
there you go.
We grew up fighting chess tough. But hey, fight like Botvinnik sounds like a good one.
Good. You got to
I'll go with
somewhere.
that one too. That guy was tough. Absolutely. And we have guys who are playing like Botvinnik right now. One particular gentleman, Ding Liren, who broke Tal's record of, well, some say it's not quite a record, 95 straight games without a loss. Ding Liren is now over 100 games as we speak, playing right now in the Shenzhen Chess Masters. I mean, they booked every single important chess tournament ever, it looks like, right now during the World Chess Championships. We saw the Women's World Championship. We've seen the Winter Chess Classics A and B here. Now the Shenzhen Chess Masters. And look at those names. Ding Liren, Yu Yang Yi, his countryman, who is now in the top 10 in the world. Exactly. You may not know that name too well, but note, he is now above a lot of names that we know, like Nakamura and Aronian. He is now one of the top 10 players on the planet. You see there, Geary is playing in the event, as well as Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, two superstars of chess. Radoslav Vajtecek, who just won Isle of Man against a bunch of gangsters. He is now tied, as you say, tied there for third. Is not quite the right way of putting that. He's actually tied for 5th place. And Nikita Vityukov, another top 2,700 player, from Russia. Strong players.
Olympic team.
Everywhere in that event. This kind of event you would pay attention to if nothing else was going on. Oh, there's this thing called the World Chess Championships. But
right.
Yeah, that's just how strong that event is. And at the same time, we also have Tata Steel India going on. And it's just names like Nakamura, Aronian, who are tied for first place right now. You got, Vishy Anand, who's that guy? Yeah, well, monster 5-time champion, world champion, that is. Very strong players playing right now. It's a very busy chess schedule. And of course, the Women's World Championship going on as we speak with brackets, bracketology. We got to study it. Has your bracket been busted? Well, I would certainly have Ju Wen-jun in mind right now as she has moved on to the round of 8. But look at all those tied matches. That says playoffs. That's right, playoffs. Tomorrow. We're going to be seeing these playoffs tomorrow. It'll be a rest day. Those of you who can watch, definitely you want to be there because Anna Muzichuk has moved on as well.
Maria
Muzichuk has moved on as well. Her sister, Anna, still in a death fight against Stefanova. So all these are tied. Amazing, exciting chess. You don't even get a chance to rest because all these tournaments will be going on. Not just the Women's World Championship, but all the others we mentioned. So if you feel like, oh, I can't watch the World Championship, hey, there's a lot of stuff to catch up on right now in the world of chess.
That's right. The Women's World Championship starts at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. For those of you who are up or not only up, but maybe still up from Saturday night. Stumble home, have a slice of pizza, especially the further west you are, the earlier it is, right?
That's
For California, you wake up at 2 a.m. and there you go. And, actually the Women's World Championship started out with like a real star-studded list of commentators, but people pointed out how ironic it was that it was all men.
Exactly, that was my thing. I thought that was hilarious.
It was all men in the Women's World Championship, and then in the official World Championship, it was two titled female players as the commentators.
Anna Rudolph and Judith Polgar.
Yeah, an IM and a GM, and then but apparently a female has joined the Women's World Championship team.
Well, thank
Eva
goodness.
Revkova, who's an IM.
Very good.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to get somebody who's played against some of the players and Olympiads and other tournaments.
Sure.
So who's your pick though? Because of course I didn't make you guys pick who's going to be the world champion because we are all on Team Fabi.
Right.
We know it's a very close match technically, but none of us are gonna have to draw straws to see who has to pick Magnus. That's unfair.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So in the Women's World Championship though, we have no Americans in the race. Who's your pick, Yaz?
Well, it's really tough to vote against the Chinese ladies. They have been doing so extremely well, whether it be in the team competitions like the Olympiad and the World Team Championships, or it's the individuals in the match play and the knockouts. So, if you say Zhu Wenjun, yeah, sure, but I think it's going to be a Chinese lady. I'm just not 100% sure it's going to be Zhu Wenjun. So in a sense, I'm hedging my bets, but now they're already down to the elite 8.
So you're picking a Chinese, I pick a Muzichuk.
You pick a Ukrainian.
I think a Muzichuk beats
you still get a good deal
your
there.
bet. Well,
okay, that's fair. That's fair. I got a group. You got a group.
Well,
I don't know about that.
You got to pick one though. Let's back up. You got to pick one.
Okay.
So I won't go with the group of Chinese ladies as you described it.
Right.
Zhu Wenjun, did you see what she had to do at the Olympiad for China to win the gold medal?
Oh, against Kosteniuk, that was amazing.
I mean, this woman has so much heart. There's a reason why she is currently the champion. Okay, you might say Hu Yifan did not play in the cycle and all that.
Sure.
Fine, she can't control that. But what she can control, she shows so much heart. By the way, in order to win her title in her match, she had to play against her own countrywoman, and she was down in that match.
Right.
And so that was a slugfest as well. She shows incredible heart, and for her heart, she's such a mild-mannered lady in person when you chat with her.
Right.
But in terms of her heart, the fire, the desire, the willpower, she's incredible, and she's showing that excellent play and also that steely determination. So she is an easy pick. I mean, obviously an easy pick. She's also the second-ranked player in the competition.
Right.
That said, the Muzichuks, I mean, they're powerhouses. There's a bunch of them in this tournament, of course, a bunch of players that could win this and former world champions still in it. And by the way, you said that the Chinese ladies, you're only down to
two.
Well, that's why it's a good bet.
So I have to go with Zhu Wenjun.
Yeah, so that's why the Muzichuks and the Chinese. So that's why it's not fair to you to have made that bet. Maybe earlier in the competition, but right now it's the better.
Well, maybe it's Zhu Wenjun.
Zhu Wenjun doesn't have the advantage over the clear advantage over Anna Muzichuk.
One of them. Because one of them's in tiebreak and one of them's already through. In both cases, Maria Muzichuk is through, Zhu Wenjun is through. Anna has to play a playoff.
Right.
And
6 out of the 8 playoffs.
Leah Team G also has to play a tiebreak against the veteran of the field, Galiamova, 46 years old, still in there fighting.
And
so
she's ahead of Kosteniuk, because I think of Kosteniuk as like a forever champion.
No, Kosteniuk is very young. She's 33.
Really?
You're just thinking of that because
she's been like a world champion when she was so young.
Yeah, she won like the second place I think when she was like 16 or 17 years old.
Right, just out of the blue.
And she was so incredibly media friendly back 10 years ago, and since then she still does a lot of stuff in the media, but not to the same level. So maybe that's why you think of it. But no, she's still very young.
Forever. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and another.
But Elisa Galavova, I certainly remember her. She visited Seattle back in the day. Yeah.
Another player who visits America
Isn't she
a lot
Gavanchuk's wife?
Used to be. They're separated.
Another player who visits the United States a lot is Zhu Wenjun. She's played in the Winter Classic, one of the classic tournaments here in St. Louis Chess Club.
Okay.
She's also played in the Chicago Open. I think women playing chess are so beautiful because you really get their faces in deep thought, which is not something you see as much from women in the media. You usually see women like kind of like smiling, looking at you, rather than being totally engrossed in their thoughts. And Ju Wenjun just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, she is a gorgeous lady, no question about it. You had a position for us, I think, Maurice, that you were going to jump in on it? Or
Not really. This was just an example.
You were just kind of reviewing,
continuing to
keep his
not
streak.
lose. Yeah, to keep his streak alive.
Okay.
And the controversy over the streak, by the way, is many players give Tal the nod for his 95 straight wins, but Sergei Tivyakov apparently has had an unbeaten streak of 110 games, and he feels like he deserves a record. And a lot of people say, well, who's Sergei Tivyakov? We know him as a strong grandmaster, now representing Holland, but he feels like my streak should count, despite the fact that Tal may have had to play such incredible players. By the way, Tal's streak included something like 49 wins out of his 95 games, while Ding Liren has only, so to speak, won somewhere in the 20s. So he doesn't even have 30 wins, which makes Tal's streak look a bit more impressive. But when you consider that Ding Liren is playing against guys like Magnus Carlsen and Giri and Anand and Nakamura and all the top, Mamedyarov, Fabiano Caruana, Tal, I believe, included a few open tournaments that kind of padded his a little bit. Not taking anything away from Tal, because he's my favorite player of all time. Let's just make that clear. So Ding Liren's accomplishment is absolutely incredible. It's now vaulted him to number 4 in the world. He's creeping up, actually very close to being number 3 on the planet behind the top 2 players that are playing in this World Championship. So just an accomplishment that's incredible. And the fact that China won double gold at the Olympiad, that is both the Open and the women's side, that just shows that Chinese chess has arrived in full. And now that Yu Yangyi is top 10,
right,
it's like, oh man,
wow,
here they come. We used to have the Soviet hegemony over chess. Will that happen as the Chinese invest more and more in their rising players? And they also have a chess league. It's simply one of the biggest developments in the last 10, 12 years.
Absolutely, and it is simply a phenomenal streak. And until you actually sit down and face these guys in a one-on-one contest and hold your own, I got to tell you, it's a thrill to play against a world champion and to make a draw. But then to go 100 games undefeated against the very, very best players in the world.
That's insane.
No, that's tip your hat and well done, young man.
There are people like Carlsen and Fabi and those guys that don't even come close to such a streak.
It's really incredible.
Now, Jennifer, the upcoming is we're going to have a free day tomorrow because there's going to be no game in London.
So Sunday, fun day. Well, not so fun for those of you who can't watch the World Championship, but we'll be back on Monday at the usual time. Meanwhile, let's get you excited with our list of upcoming guests here at Today in Chess. We've got Vladimir Kramnik coming in on November 12th.
That's a special. And Fred Waitskin, the father of Josh Waitskin, author of Searching for Bobby Fischer, as well as his newest book, which was the kind of a background of Magnus Carlsen's victory over Sergei in New York.
And he wrote Mortal Games about Garry Kasparov as well.
Okay.
Vishy Anand coming in on November 18th.
5-time world champion, what to say.
Huge friend of the St. Louis Chess Club, and also Peter Lecko on November 19th. Peter and Vladimir I'm particularly excited about because not people we've gotten a chance to interview here before at the St. Louis Chess Club and to get their perspective on this match.
And I love what Peter Lecko said to Maurice. Maurice reached out to Peter and said, would you join us? And Peter said, I get these questions from everybody and I refuse every time, but I like what you do in St. Louis, so I'll support you.
Oh, well, Lecko and Sinkfield are our fans.
Yeah, baby.
Good fans to have.
Okay,
Super fans. And so indeed we are skipping a day tomorrow. That is Sunday, November 11th, and we'll be back on November 12th for Game 3. I said that Game 3 was going to be the first decisive game of the match. Bobby with the white pieces. So Let's bring it.
Okay, we can look forward to that. And there where we stand.
This is where we stand going into that third game. We've got 1 point for Fabi and 1 point for Magnus with mirror images of their games, these two games, both times black fighting for the victory, but white holding strong to hold on to the draw.
And Maurice, final thoughts from you from these first two pretty exciting games.
Yes, definitely interesting games. No grandmaster draws these. Absolutely not. These are the battles of gladiators, as they know how important it is. 2 games already done, 10 to go. Will it require 10 more games or maybe even a tie break? Well, the way they're going, it looks like we're going to go the whole 9 yards. Tomorrow, of course, is Veterans Day here in the United States. Certainly, we want to thank those veterans who make such a tremendous contribution to this country. It's also football day, so you get your chance to catch up on some football as well. That's all going to be very exciting, but we're looking for Game 3 on Monday, and it will be a thrill to be sure. So relax, everybody. Enjoy the day tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you with us here on Monday.
Thank you, Maurice.
Have a good Sunday, everyone.
Indeed. Take care. Bye-bye now.